Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video where I have the most anticipated, the eagerly awaited Pat McGrath by Bridgerton 2 collection. Who knows why this is here under 2 weeks from launch day? I'm the last person to be able to tell you, but no one's more surprised than me that I have my products from the Bridgerton launch already. I know not why, but I am not going to be asking any questions, okay? I'm just thanking the heavens. So I do have the new eyeshadow palette, I have the blush palette, and I have 3 of the new lipsticks. I'm going to be giving you all of my thoughts. We're going to be doing some comparisons with other highlight blushes and the, of course, original Bridgerton eyeshadow palette. So if that sounds like good news to you, then keep watching. So let's get started with the eyeshadow palette. This is absolutely gorgeous to look at. I love this new pink packaging. I love the original blue, but I also do think this pink is just so pretty and lovely for spring. Now, of course, lots of people asking about the comparisons between this and the original Bridgerton palette. I will show you them side by side. They are similar. They do have similarities and differences as well. Mostly the difference in here, the new shade is the green. That chartreuse shadow is the one that really stands out as being something the original did not offer you. But I do think that this is probably skippable unless you're just a collector, unless you just want all of the Pat McGrath eyeshadow palettes. I know I do. Then for sure you are going to be able to get a pretty similar effect from both of these palettes. Other than the green, you do have some very similar shades in there. I will say, when I swatched the new palette, it definitely felt smoother, creamier, and they swatched better, smoother and more opaque, more pigmented than the original palette did. So I do think this is the better of the two. I think the green adds an extra bit of kick, and certainly like the shimmers in here, particularly this stunning like rose gold, I just feel like they're just a bit more, they offer you something a bit more different, a bit more. They are definitely a bit more up my street than the first one. But as you guys know, the first palette from Bridgerton by Pat McGrath was a big surprise hit for me. I didn't think I'd like it that much and I ended up loving it. So then I had a bit more faith that I was going to love this one. And they are a similar ilk. They do come across as a similar colour story. Yes, they do have slight differences, but when you look at them together, they are also pretty similar as far as the actual colour story and how it's going to look on the eye. Next up, let's talk about this blush palette. This was definitely like the most controversial product. When the like pictures were shown of everything that was in the collection, people were either raving or ranting about this palette. Lots of people hate the big bulky packaging and think it's off-brand for Pat McGrath. Lots of people understand this is a Bridgerton by Pat McGrath collection, and obviously this is very fitting to that era, and it does look very much like something that somebody from the show would have on their dressing table. And it's not really designed to be a small, compact, travel-friendly product. It is designed to look stunning on your dressing table, and that kind of does happen, I guess. There's definitely some issues with a few of these items when it comes to packaging. This one more so than the others. I don't know if you'll be able to see, I will have a close-up for you. These blushes, and especially the highlight, really stick out, like they're projected really far out of the packaging and they're just almost sitting on top of it, and that just screams, that's a red flag to me. I feel like as you start to use these, they're going to fall apart. That's what I think is going to happen, especially this highlight. I think if you get a lot of use out of it, it's so far out of the packaging, I can just see it like crumbling. There's no support there. I would never suggest traveling with this. I think one drop and you're going to have, you know, just product falling loosely about the place. The other thing I want to say, that when this arrived, there were 2 pieces of tape holding the box shut, and when I peeled one piece of tape carefully off, it took a load of the print with it, and I think that's really bad. Like, I didn't do that. The tape was put on there by the brand, and by just opening the product, now the packaging is destroyed. And really that's a lot of what you're paying for, this big bulky, very ornate packaging. And that's that shouldn't have happened, is what I'm saying. I would also say it's very hard to show you on camera, but it's all kind of lifting up around here. The cardboard is not properly fixed down. It feels very, very light and flimsy. I did think when this arrived it's going to feel heavy and luxurious. It doesn't. It's light as paper, light as air. It's a bit clunky. The product is like sitting a little off. It's not quite perfectly fitted in there to the cutouts. It's sitting very, very high off of the packaging. And like those little things, like, I mean, there's some marks here that I don't think I got on it. There is some missing now picture where the tape that they put on, that the brand put on to package the product, has taken away the print. And like I said, this cardboard is lifting up all around here, and it just doesn't look or feel as luxe as I feel like it should. Also, this face here of like the Duchess or the Queen, I presume, is also sort of lifting up, and I feel like that's going to peel off quite quickly. So that was all pretty disappointing. I didn't have any of those issues or notice anything like that when it came to the eyeshadow palette. Everything is in there nicely. It feels a bit slightly weightier. It's still cardboard, still is not heavy, but it has a lot more weight to it certainly than the blush palette does, which isn't really what you would expect. This is very, very light and definitely has some quirks and some issues to it, as do the lipsticks. These also feel very, very light. And also, even though all I've done so far is swatch these on my arm and then on my lips once, they all have this demarcation caused by like the rubbing as you twist the bullet up. Let me show you. Hopefully you can see that there, that little line where the bullet lipstick, as it's wound up and down, twisted up and twisted down, is rubbing on something inside the component and has actually damaged the lipstick, which is really not okay. And that has happened to all three. All three have this little like sort of slit in the bullets where they're rubbing against the component on the inside and it is damaging the lipstick, which could mean that they snap easier. It just doesn't look very nice. And again, is not something you would expect for a luxury brand to see when things arrive. You want everything to be perfect, everything to be immaculate, and to be like feel and look worth the money. So really the only thing that I didn't sort of open and feel like, what's going on there, that's disappointing, was the eyeshadow palette. So we weren't off to a great start. That is everything I have to say really about the packaging. For me, disappointing, definitely some issues, definitely some things that should have been resolved and tweaked before they went out. I'm sure that I will say Pat McGrath, their customer service as far as when you go back and forth via emails with the brand, I've always found to be excellent. And I'm sure if I was to email about them about all these issues that they would help me and perhaps allow me to exchange them or get a refund. They are typically very, very good, but please let me know if this has happened, if you notice these same issues with your products. I'd be very interested to know if everybody is getting this, noticing these same things, or it's just maybe I got a bit unlucky with some of my products. So those are my initial thoughts on the packaging and the presentation of these products. Now let's actually try them out and see how they perform. So before I get started with the tutorial, I just want to confess that I did this whole tutorial with my eyes and cheeks and lips and everything, and then realised that in fact none of that had recorded and it was all just for fun. So I then had to go and take all my makeup off, and we're here to just redo what I thought I already did. So if you notice I look a little dead inside and like I've been crying, that's why. But we take some deep breaths and we pretend that didn't happen, and you know, we move on. So I'm going to, for the first time, wink, I'm going to go into this satin shade in the middle and using my Rephr 16 brush, and I'm going to be giving this just a nice light wash all over the lid and into my crease. At least the benefit of this being like the second time I did exactly all of this stuff is that I know what's going to happen. There's going to be no surprises here. But this, as per the previous original Bridgerton collection, when this surprised me, that first collection, I'm no longer surprised. One, because I've just literally done this tutorial, but two, because I had the exact same experience with the first Bridgerton palette where, you know, I look at this and I think, oh, these pinks, they're quite bright, oh, that blue, oh, I'm not really sure what I'm doing with this, but actually on the eyes it's much more wearable and softer and just prettier. then it maybe looks to someone a bit nervous of colour like myself. When you actually look at the colours in here, they look all a little intimidating, to me at least, but actually on the eye, they're so soft. This is basically a satin, I think, this shade. It's not got any sort of glow or glitter or shimmer, but it also doesn't seem to be like a flat matte, but it blends so nicely and it's really lovely and soft and like the perfect first shade in this palette. So I'm switching up to my 27 and we're going to go into this darker matte now. This is such a lovely shade. I already know that because I already did all exactly this an hour ago, and quite honestly that happens to me more often than I'd love to admit. I can't tell you it's a fun time to refilm an entire video that you already did one time, but I'd do anything for you guys, so you know, aren't you lucky? So next I'm going to go into the Chartreuse shade. I think this is one that people were hoping, I know I was not just going to be gold, because I think, you know, Pat McGrath sometimes have the habit of like disguising golds as like something else. Like, no, this isn't another gold, guys. It's green, and then actually, no, actually it is gold. But this is definitely a chartreuse. It is, she called a spade a spade. It is certainly not your average Pat McGrath gold. I think lots of people will be really happy about that. You know, we've all got 100 of. It's definitely a green, a chartreuse, whatever fancy name you want to call it. But for me, it's definitely a green. It's not your average gold that we already have. And now I'm swapping over to my Rephr 21 brush and I'm going to go into the blue shade. I want to use every shade in here today so that you guys can see every shade in the palette on the eyes and see how it works and see how they complement or don't each other. But yeah, sure, this is probably not, if I was just going to use this myself today, this is definitely not the look I would have done with it. Like I would have gone with, you know, the mattes and then the pinky, the rose sort of shimmers and left it at that. But, you know, that's just not good enough for you guys. You guys need to see every last shade and you want to see how it works and you want to see what the performance is like, and I'm here to give it to you. So next I'm going to use my finger and I'm going to tap over the top with this beautiful shimmery high shine shade, and we're just going to get a little extra value for our money out of these shimmers. Now this shade definitely now and in the previous attempt gave me a fair old amount of fallout. You can see it again happening here. Little specks of glitter are definitely making their way onto my cheeks. They're making themselves at home there despite having no invitation. But this is a gorgeous sort of rose gold sparkly topper shade. Yes, you could just use this on its own, of course, but this goes beautifully over the top and it's not got a huge amount of base, so you can still see a bit of the chartreuse, a bit of the blue. There is a lot of shimmer despite me using my finger that is on the cheeks and not on the eyes, so that is something to be aware of. That's very typical of these types of shades from the brand, and my advice is just to A, go with it, don't panic, and B, do your eyes first. Then you can wipe away any fallout and then apply your foundation and it's not going to, you know, mess everything up. It's very easy dusted away, I will say that. I've already dusted it away, no issues. Now I'm going back into that bottom matte with my Rephr 26. I'm going to smoke out the lower lash line here a little. And then I'm using this final shade here, this more soft shimmer, more subtle shimmer on my inner corners. This is very, very pretty. This could absolutely be a highlight, I will say, because it's not as sparkly, shimmery as some of the other shades in this palette. This is definitely a more softer luminosity and like definitely could be used as a highlight, especially if you have a lighter skin tone. Very pretty. Okay, so here is that finished look. I think it's so pretty. And although, you know, whacking every colour onto my eyes is not really something I often do, I actually really like this. I think it's so pretty, and yeah, it's slightly more colourful and kapow than I would usually go for, but I also think it's quite wearable and pretty. So I am super happy with that. And nothing, you know, bad happened. All of the shadows worked beautifully. This one did have quite a bit of fallout, but you do expect that from these looser glitter topper type shades from Pat McGrath. Everything else, the satin and the matte, blended beautifully like a dream, built beautifully. The green is just exactly what I was hoping. It's actually green. It's not just a gold disguised as something that's not gold to slip another one past us. The blue is so pretty and icy and quite different from the original. And this shade is just so pretty. And I just know, you know, using just these three together and maybe a bit of this one for some extra kapow is going to be gorgeous. But apart from the bit of fallout from that topper shade, which you can still just see everywhere, really no issues whatsoever. Such a pretty look. So let's move on to this bad boy. I'm going straight into the highlight at the top. One highlight, 3 blushes in here. And I already know from the swatches, this highlight is quite a yellow gold, definitely more yellow than any highlight I have owned or tried before. And I would be acting surprised right now that I like it, but this is not the first time we've done this. But in the first video, the first time I filmed this, my thoughts that I'll pretend to have now, like you can definitely see the yellow in there. You can see the yellow shift just about on my skin. I think if you have a fairer, lighter skin tone than me, you're going to see the yellow more. I think on tanned and deeper skin, that yellow shift there, that yellow tone is going to be delightful. On me, I'm surprisingly feeling it. I didn't think when I swatched this, I thought, oh, that is very yellow gold. And I don't really pick up highlighters in those tones. It's going to look really odd and yellow on me. But actually, there's no cast. When I look forward, you know, you can't see it. It just catches the light. And yes, it does catch the light and you can see the yellow, the gold there. But it just looks beautiful. And it's a smooth, pretty, understated highlighter that's right up my street, and I'm surprised at how much I like it given that it is so yellow. Now, of course, I'm going to go into the coral blush in here. I believe this one is called Aphrodisia, although it's kind of, I can't quite tell which one it's supposed to be which, but I think it's Aphrodisia is the name, but it is the coral in here. Now, you've been warned. A lot gets picked up on the brush. These are pigmented blushes, like, be careful, guys, be careful. Okay, it wasn't as frightening as I thought. I'm actually going to build that up. I mean, it's definitely blushing. It's definitely giving blush is what it's giving, but not in an unusable way. Ugh, that is so pretty. That colour is so pretty. And it's got such a lovely luminosity. It's definitely not like shimmery. It's definitely not adding a huge amount of texture. It doesn't look like I've just put highlight all over my cheek, but it's got this gorgeous luminosity. There's, by the way, no mirror. If you, like me, were trying to look at where you were putting your blush, there's nowhere to look. Okay, there's nowhere. There's no mirror in here. Now, I would just like to put this all over both of my cheeks, but I feel like that's going to be an unpopular decision. So we're going to go into, I think, the pink. The pink? What do you think? Take a vote. Take a vote. Pink or berry? Pink or berry? I think you're saying pink. Are you? So I'm going to go into what I think must be Budding Romance, the like fuchsia blush in here against all my better instincts, because fuchsia is not typically a blush I go for, but it's nice to see, you know, more than one shade on the cheeks. We are doing a review after all. There are people here other than me. Okay, let's get a little bit. If you see a lot of glitter in this area, that is from my eyes and not anything from the blush or highlight. That's actually pretty. I actually really like that. I mean, I love this side, of course. Who thought that I wouldn't? Nobody didn't. But this side is actually really pretty. I mean, you can't really tell I've got two different blushes on, can you? I feel like they look pretty similar actually on the cheeks, and they both look gorgeous. I'm really not a fan of this packaging and just anything about the way that they are like plonked on there, the process. But the actual formulas and what's in there, the product itself, I think this overall, the blush and the highlight looks gorgeous. And I'm very much loving that. Like, I'm loving it. I think this looks beautiful. Both sides. I think the highlighter is really working, and I did not think it was going to. Okay, so let's move on to these lippies. So first up, let's have a look at Venusian Peach. So if you're familiar with the Luxe Trance formula, these feel similar, but I think they feel lighter. They're not quite as thick. These are a bit lighter, a bit thinner. But they share that creamy feeling and that sort of same type of finish as well. That not really shiny, not glossy, but that cream finish. This is a little light. I wouldn't mind a liner with this colour on my skin tone, but a very pretty light, soft peach. Next we have Negligee. A very nice, like pretty everyday nude shade, very comfortable, liking the creamy formula. They're quite buildable. You need a few passes to get like the full kind of pigment there, but it's a lovely, nice, creamy, light feeling lipstick. No discernible scent in these. And lastly, Elson 5. Super beautiful, like classic red. I feel like this one's giving a bit more shine just because it's a more vibrant colour. So now let's move on to some comparison swatches from Pat McGrath's existing blush and highlight offerings. So first up, I'm swatching Champagne Venus, the new shade from this blush palette. Actually a lot more gold and warmer than I thought. Next up, I'm swatching Luna Nude. Much rosier in tone and more opaque. Then Golden Nectar. That's a little closer, but still nowhere near as sort of yellow toned. And finally, Divine Rose from the previous highlights. Yeah, I didn't think they would be similar. The new highlight from this palette is just much more like yellow gold than anything that she's released previously, certainly that I own at least. And now for the blushes from the palette. They feel very soft. Wow, they have lots of pigment. And they look beautifully glowy, lots of luminosity in here. Very pretty, wow. Then we have Desert Orchid from her existing blush line and Nude Venus. Much lighter than anything in this palette, not similar. Electric Bloom. And Paradise Venus. So these are the three shades from the blush palette. Then we have Desert Orchid, Nude Venus, Electric Bloom and Paradise Venus. None of these really are similar. I guess the closest is Electric Bloom, but these have a gorgeous glow, and like definitely the coral from the palette has a lot of like gold, like pearl through it, which is gorgeous and catching the light. Very different to anything I already own from the brand, which is fantastic. And they look a lot more luminous to me as well. And then for the lips, we have Negligee, which is described as a neutral pink beige. Venusian Peach, which is a light peachy nude. Those two are quite close, but definitely peachier and more mauve. And Elson 5, which is described as a true blue red. Negligee, Venusian Peach, Elson 5. So there you have it. You've seen comparison swatches, you've seen these products in action, close-ups of all the packaging and all the info. Here are my final thoughts. Let's start off with this eyeshadow palette. I think this is gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. I certainly like it as much as I did the first Bridgerton palette. I may actually like it even more. I definitely want to keep using this and seeing how it grows on me and how the different looks I can get out of this work for me or don't. But so far, I mean, I used every shade in here. I certainly want to give it a bit more of a neutral go tomorrow, maybe just using the satin, the matte and these beautiful shimmers at the top. I definitely want to give a bit more of a playtime to the blue at some point, but so far I think it's beautiful. I love this color story. I didn't have any issues with this packaging for this product, and I really enjoyed playing with it, and I love this look that I came up with it. I think it's super beautiful. So the eyeshadow was all around a win for me. Is it too similar to the first palette? I think so. I think it would have been nice to see something completely different for those of us who already had the first one. But if you don't, I definitely would suggest this one. I mean, it really depends which you prefer personally, but for me, I think if you were to ask me which would be my favorite, I think I would go for this one. I think it's a little more versatile, and for me, it's just more so like in line with my preferences. The blush palette is tricky because the actual products I think are gorgeous. I love the highlight. I love both of the blushes I tried. The swatches of them really blew me away. That luminosity, the creaminess, the pigment, they blend it out stunningly. They're so flexible, and I think will adapt to very many skin tones because you can use them very lightly. They blend easily and you can use a very light hand, but they also have enough pigment there, and they are very buildable that I think they will work for any skin tone. You just need to use them differently to get them to work for you. I think the highlight on fair skin may pull too yellow, too gold on the fairest skin tones, but I think it's going to be stunning on everyone from like a medium to deep. And I love it on me. I think it's gorgeous. I didn't think I would. I thought it's going to be too yellow, too gold, but it's beautiful, very nice and natural and glowy. And it's just quite different to anything I have in my collection because of that real yellow gold tone that it has. I think it's beautiful. As far as the actual products in here, I love, love, love the products. I think the packaging is verging on disastrous. I'm not a huge big fan of how it looks. I do think I understand it's, you know, part and parcel of the collaboration, and the aesthetic is very much supposed to be Bridgerton, but for me I am someone who would much rather have had, you know, something a little more solid, a little more travel friendly, a little easier to store than this. That being said, obviously I knew what I was buying and that it looked like this. I certainly expected this to feel more luxurious, to be weightier, to certainly maybe have a mirror inside, and I wasn't expecting them to be so raised and it therefore feels so vulnerable and fragile as it does. I also certainly wasn't expecting, you know, in the process of just opening it to get destroyed by the tape, and it just feels like it just wasn't perfected. Like everything's a little lifting up, and it doesn't look new, and it doesn't feel or look luxurious. It's much too light for it to feel that way. So I think the packaging was really disappointing, and the product inside deserves better, because the products inside is amazing. I don't think you would be disappointed at all with the product, but I think the packaging, it just slightly fell short for me. I like the lipsticks. I don't think the formula is like groundbreaking, insanely anything different to anything that you already have. I think they're a nice creamy, like satin lipstick is how I describe them. It feels very light, and they are a thinner texture, but they are super creamy. I feel like they feel lovely on the lips, and I like the pigmentation. I liked the quite precise bullet, allowed me to have a nice precise application. I like all three shades that I picked up. Again, the packaging feels very light. The gold bow looks very, I don't want to say tacky, but I can't think of a better way to describe it. They look so bulky and large, and it's so light that it doesn't feel or look as luxurious as her usual lipstick bullets do, and that was a bit surprising and disappointing for me, but not so much so as the damaged bullets just from winding the lipstick up. That shouldn't be happening. Like, I don't expect to see that. And these are definitely going to be prone to breaking if every time I wind the lipstick up, they're getting damaged by their own casing. So that as well was very disappointing. The lipsticks themselves are really nice shades. I'll continue to wear them for sure. But again, the packaging is letting it down a little. So there you have it. Those are all my thoughts on this Pat McGrath by Bridgerton 2 collection. Please let me know if you received your products, how you're getting on, if you had any issues with your packaging or you just think it's all amazing. I would love to know in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love to see you in my next video. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.